we are going to do a financial planner to have some people talk to us about what entrepreneurs, what resources and funding options could be available to entrepreneurs when they are first starting out. We have Darren Haar from the Black Hills Angel Fund, Elevate, Rapid City Economic Development. Allie DeMerseman, she's the Director of West River Business Service Center, and Saeed Suleiman from Shield Financial. I'm so excited I got his name. I practiced that. They're going to give themselves an introduction on their entrepreneur journey and a little bit of history on themselves, as well as what they are currently doing in their business. And so with that, I give you our financial planner panel.
Okay.
Not planner, panel.
Hello. Is this working?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Allie DeMerseman, and I'm the director of the West River Business Service Center. And good morning. Thanks for having me here today. I'm excited to talk to you. I came last week, and it was my first time at 1 Million Cups, and it seems like a really great group. So good job to all the people that are leading this. And I'm a Rapid City native. I grew up here. My family's lived here for a very long time. I've known Leah for a very long time. I actually babysat her oldest daughter when she was a baby, so it makes me feel really old to see her around. But yeah, how old is she now?
21.
Yeah, 21. Like they said, I'm the director of the West River Business Service Center. I'm fortunate enough to lead a really great team there. And I started doing that about 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years ago now. And when I started, I'm a visual person. I had to create a chart so I could describe to people all the things we do there, because we really do a lot of wonderful things. And a lot of you have probably come to our center and used one of our programs or services, but didn't realize the extent of all the other services we provide. And we do have Fran White in the audience and Kate Roulard, who also are part of our team there. So I just really quickly, I know we only have a couple minutes, but I just wanted to describe to you some of the programs that we have for entrepreneurs at West River Business Service Center. And we have a lot of acronyms that we throw around. So please let me know if there's something I can describe a little bit more. So at the West River Business Service Center, you see here we have a number of programs that work on business development, economic development, and community development on the west side of the state. So we have, a lot of you have probably used the Small Business Development Center before. Donna Levens is the director of that. And so they really work with helping you get your business plan together, just general business counseling, and also looking at financial projections for funding your business. We also have SCORE at our facility, SCORE West River, and I know Deanna is involved with that, and so we really appreciate our mentors through SCORE. We also have the Black Hills Community Economic Development Organization, and so that is a certified development company under the Small Business Administration. So we're certified to make SBA 504 loans, and we can talk about that a little bit more too when we start with the questions. But that is really for real estate, fixed assets, purchases, and we always partner with a lender to provide those loans. And then we also have the West River Revolving Loan Fund, which Kate talked about briefly. And that's a revolving loan fund that most areas in western South Dakota, we can work with businesses in those areas. Right now, not in Rapid City limits, but hopefully that'll change soon. So if you have a business outside of Rapid City limits, we do have some funding. And that is really flexible funding. We have funding for capital, working capital, we have funding for equipment, for land purchases, construction, all sorts of things. So we really are flexible with that funding. We also can partner with lenders too to help a business get going. So I think my 2 minutes is probably up. So that's just a quick rundown of some of the organizations that we have that really work with businesses and entrepreneurs, some of the tools we have. So I think you are next.
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Darren Haar. I grew up in Custer, and then right after high school I left and I got a degree in chemical engineering at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. Worked for IBM for a couple of years, worked for DuPont for a couple of years, lived around the US and the globe. 6 years ago, I was actually leading a $1 billion+ global business out of Tokyo. And the problem with doing that is you work all the time. I mean, it's incomprehensible how much you work. So my wife and I decided, I'm originally from here, she's from Mississippi. We decided to come back here. So my entrepreneurial journey since I've been back, I have a series of businesses that real estate investment and management. Really though, why I'm sitting up here, one of the other things I did is I formed a couple of angel funds. We pooled about $5 million, local business people to invest in early stage tech companies. I'm an entrepreneur in residence at the school Minded with Russ. I'm the vice chair of Economic Development Partnership. I'm the vice chair of Elevate Rapid City. Sit on the airport board. And when we came back, my wife and I both committed, we had a call that we were going to work on. My call was going to be to create as many jobs as I could in Rapid City. So that's my passion, that's what I work on. I think one comment I'll make, there are way more tools in this community to support entrepreneurship than people understand. It's a matter of getting the right connections and figuring out what those tools are and using them. The other thing I would say is the one big thing that we lack here that you'll see in a lot of other places are people that have done it before. When you live in, a lot of my career I was in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, and then there's all these other entrepreneurs that have been successful and they can help you, and there's companies that are successful, and if you need a manager or a certain skill set, you can usually go hire one out of another company to help you with your startup. So, this is what I'm trying to bring is some experience and background. The last division at DuPont I had about a $60 million R&D budget and $40 million sales and marketing. And you made the comment about bringing technology to market. It is infinitely harder than people comprehend. People think it's a pretty easy, straightforward thing. It's not. Like I said, I do a lot at Mines. And the last thing I'll make, Rapid City is about to explode. I don't think most people understand the number of jobs that are about to come to this town through what's going to happen out at the base, what's happening at the underground lab, the investment the hospital's making when you just look at the base growth that goes on in our community. I honestly believe 10 years from now there'll be 10 to 15,000 more jobs in this community. I think the big question is as a community how we're going to accommodate what's about to hit us.
Good morning, I'm Nsight Suleiman with Shield Financial, co-owner with Gordon Decker. Part of my journey is I grew up in Saudi Arabia, so I grew up there from infancy till I was 16, came up to Rapid City. My grandfather was in the Air Force, and that's kind of how I ended up here. They treat money very differently over there. People always ask me, oh, you must have oil money. No, the government owns all the oil, so just as a preface there. I started my financial journey about 7 years ago in investments. I was a financial planner, and then I moved to, then I changed to Wells Fargo actually as in private banking. So I worked with high net worth clients there, helping them pretty much through every stage of that. And so that was a big part of seeing lots and lots of small businesses come and go. So I've seen, what worked, what didn't. I helped open accounts for them, and I saw what actually happened inside of the accounts too. So when you see it hundreds of times, you kind of get an idea of what works and what doesn't work. Then me and Gordon opened up our business here very recently, Shield Financial, and so we've been excited to actually work with people at the beginning of their journeys when they're starting. Maybe they're looking at what kind of debt do I need to look into, how am I going to take this myself, where is the money going to come from, to people in the middle, to people at the very end who are looking at succession planning, which I think is also an important part. You always know if you're going into business, you're wanting to get also out of business. So we enjoy working with those people, working with those clients, and kind of getting an idea of what they want to do and how they want to do it. So it's been a fun journey for me to do that.
Okay, so this is where we open up for questions and answers. So if there's any questions that you have, please feel free to ask them. What we do ask is that if you have resources for other people, just talk to them afterwards and network with them. And when Leah will have a mic and I will have a mic and we'll pass it around, just because we want our audio to pick up what you are saying. We would like you to introduce yourself again. If you have not, if you're someone that has came before, please introduce yourself and also the business that you are here representing. Just so that way we can start putting faces with names and it helps us to network as our group as well. So Who has the first question for our financial panel? Okay.
I'll go ahead and start this off because Darren, you gave a really good analogy of the progression of financial funding. Can you kind of expand on that?
Yeah. Yeah, so the progression of financial funding, and this is not my little quippy thing here, but it starts off with friends, families, and fools. So those people that feel like they need to invest in you because they're obligated to a lot of times because they're your friends and family. And then once you get your story, knitted together well enough and you're getting into revenue or maybe even pre-revenue, but you got a really good story that's investable, that's where you can start bringing in equity investors like angel investors. And then if you get bigger is where you bring in venture capital, which is similar to angel investors. Usually they're just bigger pools of money that are more professionally run. And then eventually you become bankable, and that's where you got to find a good bank. And then you can get money from either suppliers, they'll give you terms, or banks will lend you money. But you got to get to the point where you have some collateral, because banks don't. The point is, banks don't lend on ideas and people. You got to work a whole different set of investors at the front to get there. And then one other comment that I'd make, I left DuPont for a little while and worked for a big VC in Philadelphia. And you got to have your story together. It's amazing how often people come and ask for money and the story is not together. That money is not easy to get. It is very, very hard to get. You better have a good story and a good team if you want to go ask for that kind of money.
Okay, I have a question. I'm Leah with Twilight First Aid and Safety. One of the biggest aha moments I had when we bought the business 3.5 years ago was you don't have to, but debt is a good thing. Debt is not a bad thing. When you think about like your personal finances, you typically think you don't want to have a lot of debt. But in a business, you almost have to have debt to leverage that to grow. So I wanted to hear your opinions on that and just, what you think about that.
I definitely agree. Definitely there's good debt and there's bad debt. I think if you're using it in an appropriate and wise way, if you know that the debt you're taking on could potentially destroy you and your family and or your business, a lot of times new businesses when they're starting out have to sign personal guarantees, which I'm sure, you all probably know that. So that means that they can take your money too, not just the business's money. So you have to basically assess that risk, know what you're going to be taking on, and decide if that makes sense for you.
Rate of return.
I would agree with that. I agree. Part of that, I think one of the things, like I said, so I've done a lot of real estate investing, and one of the big things is try to get where you're big enough, and I call them big boy loans, where you're not personally guaranteed anymore, where it doesn't carry that guarantee. So for me, you got to try to push toward that as fast as you can, so that they don't come after you personally if things go poor. And I'd always say, leverage is that great, Finance 101, they talk about getting leverage and how it juices your returns, but you got to make sure that you keep those ratios right with your cash flows and stuff like that. That's how I look at it.
I'm Mike Amick from Amick's Hunt in Rapid City. You're saying my business we've been in business since '71. They still demand personal guarantees. Every supplier, the bank. How do you get beyond that point?
You got to go to the right lenders, and I'm talking from like a real estate perspective. There's something called the secondary market in real estate. I mean, if you have big enough real estate holdings, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have tools the same way they do for like individual, like as a conforming loan. In that secondary market for real estate, it doesn't carry personal guarantees.
Yeah, I'm in the contract, and the contract. I'm talking a lot of the small businesses are not going to get that huge.
It's hard to get big enough to where you. Yeah, it's a different set of lenders. If you're working with these local banks, they're all going to require you to put personal guarantees on stuff. Yeah.
The only small comment I might make on that is you can try to get as creative as you want with lending because you have so many choices. Obviously there's SBA, which is a partnership with a bank. There are credit unions. There are also online lenders. So, it's worth maybe taking a look at some of those too, to see what can peer-to-peer lending, there's a lot more options, I think, out there too, that it's worth at least investigating to see, if you qualify for something like that.
Sorry. So a question probably about more jobs. So jobs are great, but we have one of the lowest unemployment rates, certainly in Rapid City and also in the state. So I'm just kind of curious what that means, more jobs.
That's funny, Allie and I were having this conversation before. I sit on the Mayor's Economic Development panel too, and we were just having this conversation earlier this week. So to fill a lot of them, so a lot of them will come with B-21, probably about 5,000 of them. The Air Force are going to bring those. We don't have to worry about filling those. It looks like if we get the first round of B-21, there'll be probably 1,000 tech jobs that come with Northrop Grumman and their contractors. They'll bring a lot of those. But there's a lot that as a community we're going to have to fill. And so like I said, I'm the vice chair of Elevate. One of the major pillars of that pool of money we raised, and we raised about $8 million to try to tackle stuff like this in the community, is workforce development. One of the first rounds of workforce development that we think we need to do is like what Sioux Falls has done, where they have a clearinghouse of people that want to come back to the community, and then people that are looking to fill jobs in the community or maybe looking to move to your community. It's going to be a challenge, and I'll tell you what, it's not just finding the jobs. We have no housing in Rapid City. We have a housing shortage in Rapid City. Our schools are completely full. But I'm telling you, it's coming one way or the other, because most of these investments and most of this work is being driven by big outside players. It's not Rapid City trying to decide this. And for me, this is where I'm excited about being part of Elevate, because having grown up here and left, the outside world functions a whole lot different than Rapid City does. And I think either we're going to get organized and start dictating our future and organizing ourselves, or outsiders are going to start coming and dictating our future a lot more than probably a lot of us are going to care to see how it turns. But I think we can fill those jobs. I don't think it'll be a challenge. When you look at the School of Mines, and you look at the Air Base, the number of people that they bring in, that we've done such a poor job of retaining for years. School of Mines, 80% of these kids leave this town. We had jobs for them, they would stay. So a lot of those workers will come from the School of Mines not leaving. I think there's an opportunity to bring a lot of mines and people back into Rapid City to fill some of these jobs too.
Deanna, Becket, character coach. How do we as community members get involved with Elevate? Is it just a select group of people, or is it kind of open to everybody?
I guarantee it's open for everybody. It's just getting going is the deal. Literally, I think we have our first investor meeting tomorrow. Some vice chair just connect with me, because what I'd like to see happen is, again, and I don't mean to sound critical, but having grown up, it's interesting having grown up in a place like this and then leave and then come back. We tend not to organize ourselves here. You look at a lot of other communities, they're more organized and a little more eye on the prize of what they want to achieve. And I think now with Elevate, and quite honestly, it just seems like Rapid City's at that point. That's how we're going to run ourselves, independent of Elevate. It's not just Elevate. I think Elevate would be a good platform to do that. I would like to see more people engaged and involved in helping set the course of where things are going. And I'll tell you what's been fun, like since I've been back, my big thing was, like I said, was creating tech jobs because of my background. The one thing you'll see pop up over the next couple of years, we're going to build 2 different tech parks in downtown Rapid City. And it was just because there was a small group of us that wanted to tackle that. We need more small groups of people that are tackling these different pieces and parts of setting our future. So if you want to be involved, just talk to me and figure out how to do it.
Gordon Decker, Shield Financial. Tell us, there's so many people that have an idea for a business, or they've started a business in their garage, or they're somewhere on that entrepreneurial journey, but they have no idea where to get started or how to get started. Maybe give us some ideas of what your suggestions would be.
Well, I think the first place to get started is to come to the West River Business Service Center and talk to somebody with the Small Business Development Center, so that you can really, go through and flesh out your business idea. That business plan is so important, and they have the resources there to help you, research the market, financial projections, and all those types of things. They will not write the plan for you, but they will provide assistance, because that's a really important part of, developing your business, is sitting down and writing that plan of, what you want to accomplish. So I think that's the best place to start. Then they can help you looking, maybe working with SCORE to find a mentor that has been there and done that, and work with you through that process, looking at different financing options, and just really walk you through the process. So I think that's the first place to start. No, it's free. Yeah, it's free.
One other comment on that, just start running some cheap experiments. Most people have this view that there'll be this big, I'll sit behind closed doors and I'll develop a plan and I'll go convince the world it's a great idea and everybody's going to invest in me. It doesn't work like that. For me, it's like trying to find some small, cheap experiments that you can run. It almost no matter what your idea is, there's easy experiments you can run that are going to be, again, they're not going to bankrupt you if they don't go right. They're not going to take a lot of time, but start trying to do some of those small, easy things and see if you can get some traction. We had a kid at the school of mines, he was a sophomore ME, and he came up with this design of these super high-end speakers. So then he would just, and Russ knows this kid, he's impressive, right? And this was his passion, he wanted to do it. So he used the labs at mines and made his parts and made these speakers, and then he started showing them to people and he started selling them, and then he would beg, borrow, and steal to use other people's CNC equipment and lathes and get these parts made. And then now, as the Angel Fund, we just invested like $250,000 in him. Has a little factory now out on the side. But he started small. He's just running these little experiments, low risk, out of a garage, and that's the whole garage startup concept. Just get in there. And I always felt like I always believed I'd have this grand epiphany of this big idea I'd have. And my big epiphany was I was never going to have an epiphany, and that you just got to start working stuff.
I would just say, it's in some ways it's that side. Right now, it's the side hustle economy. They talk about it a lot. You see it a lot on social media and things like that, where people have those side jobs. I think it's important when you are starting out, especially if it's something that you're not sure about, that a lot of times we say keep your current job. If there's a way to reduce hours in that job where you can sustain your family, do that. And then you try that out. And as you're trying it out, that's where research, analysis, asking people, especially people who won't be biased. Like the fools and friends and family and things like that, where they're going to just pat you on the back and say it's a great idea. You really want to get some really honest feedback, which I think, we would give all that honest feedback. We go to the Restaurant Business Center too, and Darren and all these, we'll all give you straight, honest opinions. But in general, you just want to make sure that you're not getting patted on the back and then just go all in. Also, then I would say too, if you're unable to get bank funding and things like that, just know how long it's going to take, how much money is going to be eaten, in what amount of time, and how many years can you be in the red before it's too late for your family, things like that. So.
Good morning, Dr. Russ Enns, retired biotech executive. Just a little background, I had experience with 6 biotech and 4 startups and IPOs, 4 IPOs. The last company in Silicon Valley, in 2003, we were $100 million. Did secondary offering, and in 10 years we grew the business to a $5 million business, sold it to a multinational conglomerate. But the thing that I see in South Dakota, especially with the School of Mines, working with Darren and the entrepreneurs and residents, School of Mines is a phenomenal school in engineering and technology. And what I see here is like a small Caltech or an MIT. And one of the things that I see as a vision, what Darren has, high-tech manufacturing. One of the things in biomedical devices industry that I was involved in, a lot of the stuff we did in nanotechnology and microfluidics required us to develop our own fabricated robotics for manufacturing, things where you're doing parts per thousands, putting different plastic pieces and things together and different chemicals and managing all of this. And all of that instrumentation, you can't buy it off the shelf. You have to have engineers that design it and fabricate it, and the software that drives it. And finding this type of equipment when you can just literally see thousands of parts going through per minute It takes some phenomenal engineering. We have those kind of people and talent here. And one of the things that I found that was very difficult in San Diego, in Seattle, in Silicon Valley, and also even in Chicagoland, the cost of living is so high. It's hard to attract new talent outside of those circles. So like in Silicon Valley, it's just the same people going around and around in circles, and you're not attracting new talent from outside the area. And it's limiting because you end up with just a limited amount of ideas on how to do things. And some of the companies, and Darren mentioned IBM, people started moving out of Silicon Valley, like Boise has a huge place where they manufacture stuff for Silicon Valley. And a lot of companies are starting to go out into fringes where it's much less expensive to live, and you have a lot more open space for people, young people that like to do outdoor activities. So I think Rapid City and this whole Black Hills area really needs to try to attract VC money from East Coast, West Coast, and show that we could have centers here of excellence that help develop, like for my interest in biomedical devices. So just some comments, and I hope we can get there. I hope I can see that we work as a future that we can get some of these incubators going.
I'd make a comment to that. I think it's a foregone conclusion now, it will. And just to be clear, sometimes, so I came from a very humble background. I didn't even know there was such a thing as a chemical engineer when I graduated from high school. The thing that frustrated me the most is kind of coming from a humble background in this place, the promise to our kids is really poor. We can't promise them good jobs. Typically you have to leave here. I think we can change that. I think we can offer better jobs. And to be clear, sometimes I know I really focus on the tech jobs. For me, it's not all about the tech jobs. That just helps diversify our economy. It's a different set of jobs. That just happens to be a set of jobs that I'm focused on. You have jobs like that, it raises the tide of every entrepreneur in this town, because then you have people with more disposable income, you have a better tax base, you get better giving for your charities. It just looks a lot different. I believe that'll happen now. In the School of Mines, I swear, Rapid City's probably the only city on the face of this planet, and I will go that far, that would have an institution like the School of Mines and not have leveraged it as its primary economic development engine. I mean, it's mind-boggling that we've never tapped that. I go drive around it, so I mean, it looks like a shithole, quite honestly. It does. It's embarrassing. We owe our kids better than that. To give them jobs, to give them an opportunity to get educated and be able to stay here if they want, go away, come back if they want. We've never offered that. And I think I think we will. I think there's a lot of us now that are committed to make sure this happens. And you can do it anywhere. That's the nice thing about knowledge work. You don't always have to be right next to where the final customer consumes it.
One of the programs we have at West River Business Service Center under Black Hills Community Economic Development is Economic Development Activities Committee that's called the Rushmore Region Alliance. And so it's all the economic developers in our region. We have 12 different communities that are represented. And something that we're looking at is what are those target industries that we want to look at, where we have assets in our region that would be attractive to those industries. And so I'd like to talk to you more afterwards too, because that's something we're really looking at and how we can market to those and really show what our assets are and how they relate to the needs of those industries. So it's an important thing to continue to work on.
Good morning, Marie Strain, financial advisor with Edward Jones. So just taking it back to kind of the local business perspective, how would you recommend businesses make it over that 5 to 10 year hump, right? I've been in Rapid City for many years. I see many small businesses pop up, super excited. I know the population and the desires here to support them, but after 5, 7 years, the doors are closed. And then the other part of that question is we take some of these businesses, the Runner Shop, for example, it's been in business for nearly 30 years. Who's going to take that over? Who in our community is going to make sure that that business stays in town and we don't lose it all to Shields? I love Shields, but I want to see those businesses make it 30 years and then So how do we encourage folks to step up and buy those businesses? And how do we educate business owners to make it over that 5 to 10 year hump?
So some of that handoff for me is creating an environment where you have more entrepreneurs, right? Just so that you have a string of people that are looking to do those kind of things and then would step up to take over a business. And I think we're doing that. I think like this Million Cups is a prime example of that, right? Where you're getting people that think this way and like-minded souls that find each other, and then we'll find opportunities like that, work them together. That 5 to 7 years and then going under, unfortunately, that is the plight of entrepreneurs no matter where you're at, right? You hear those statistics for, what is it, like 85% or something ridiculous of startups go out of business. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the nature of doing startups. I would say, though, to improve your odds, what's really cool about Rapid City, we're small enough, there's several of you in this room I've met before, you know what I mean, that we overlap. Network, and bring other people into the fight with you. And because we are small and we're good Midwestern ethic, I feel like we work together to try to help each other. And I think if you get in the network and you work with others, they'll help you be successful, and you can help them be successful. Unfortunately, though, that's just a lot of times part of the nature of being an entrepreneur, that the risk-reward profile just looks a lot different than if you took a job with somebody else.
Yeah, I just reiterate that in the sense of networking, which is exactly what 1 Million Cups is doing, is trying to create that where you can have some people who are at the end of that business life cycle and at the beginning of the business life cycle, and hopefully they're able to kind of move into that, because it is truly who you know and not what you know. They say that all the time, and there's a lot of truth to that, unfortunately. So that's what we're all doing. I think they say be the change you want to see in the world. I know that's very cliche and gimmicky, but it is true. If we're actually out there in this community, actually being active like all of you are right now, I think that can really help in encouraging others to join and encouraging others to be part of whatever piece of that it might look like. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's wrong. Aaron Stern with Mutrix. Darren, you've talked about, and I guess Russ, you've talked about your background. Russ, our background may be similar. You're much more successful. The thing about these companies that move out of like Silicon Valley, to Idaho, or Micron, the model now is shifting to the internet and networking through really any location. And I think the opportunity is to educate that side of how to market, how to network, and maybe we can help with that, and use the internet better. Capital is not democratic; it all comes from wealthy sources. So Kickstarter type mentality does help and can bring some capital to startups. And if you're into incubators, I think, and I agree with you, that School of Mines is decrepit, or a poor image for this area. If we can build an incubator around there and get some businesses, get a Trader Joe's here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always joke, once we get a P.F. Chang's, I'm gonna stop by. I agree, and I think we are. So a couple things I should have made a comment in. There actually is a pretty decent sized venture capital firm inside South Dakota now. It's called South Dakota Equity Partners.
Oh, cool.
And then like I said, we've got a couple angel funds. We had a total of $5 million. We spent the first 3.5 probably. But we've also created a really strong network of angel investors, and so now we're syndicating and sharing deals.
Great.
So I would say there's actually a lot better. It's not where it needs to be.
Yeah.
We've got a very active network of angel investor funds, and we've got a VC fund that has $20 million in it. Like I said, it's called South Dakota Equity Partners. It's run by Blaine Chrisman. We are the first incubator, tech park, whatever you want to call it, the Ascent Center, is going to be built just north of the post office. They should break ground on that next summer. As part of supporting the Dune, the neutrino beam that they're going to shoot from Chicago up here, they have to build something called the integration facility for that. It'll turn into kind of its own tech park too, and we're kind of in the throes of siting it, and I'm pretty sure I know which way that'll go now. It'll turn into another tech park down in there. So we're gonna have that kind of investment going in there, and I think if we get the first round of B21, which I believe we will, you'll see a lot of big high-tech companies have to come here to support that platform.
Absolutely.
And they'll invest, and we're hoping to direct theirs into that corridor too. Then you got critical mass. Then you got enough people down there, hopefully they're stealing people off of each other, and there's people for mines
Right.
staying down in
And
there,
they're
and then
staying.
turning in there, and,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then, you know, and then small business builds, I mean, we have to service all of that. So small business all benefits. We all
They do,
benefit.
they do, and I realize that, because I get excited about it, because I'm a nerd. But my intent, though, is that it helps all jobs. When you've got a lot of, we would hire entry-level chemical engineers in DuPont for 80 grand a year. Somebody that's 21 years old from 80 grand a year. Why? Because they create a lot of economic value.
Right.
If you keep more of those jobs in your community, it helps everything from charitable giving, tax base, other businesses. And that's my intent. It's not about just tech jobs, it's about all jobs and all economic wealth creation and flow through a community.
Russ Enns again. One of the organizations through the School of Mines that Darren and I saw a couple of years ago is called a biocenter. And I haven't heard much about them lately, so I need to stir that pot. But
They're still there.
it's a consortium, and I think it's a really smart thing that the universities have done in this state. So South Dakota State University, the SDU, Black Hills State, School of Mines, they've pulled resources together in a consortium. So not every campus has all the expertise that they need to start something from scratch. In this day and age in high tech, in fact, my whole career has been this way. And I think it started with the space program in NASA. If you're going to do some of these really phenomenal things in life, you can't do it alone. You have to have a multidisciplinary team of experts. And so the concept of getting the campuses involved this way, not every campus has all that expertise, but then pulling that resources as a state, that also then would really help. The Biocenter would help for biomedical business development, and having that backstop to young entrepreneurs that are trying to start a business or a company. But I'd like to see that organization ramp it up and then advertise outside the state of South Dakota that we have this backstop of expertise. And then I think that would help, create more of these jobs, like Sanford's hospital and medical, their goal there is to, I think Sanford would like to overcome Mayo Clinic. And so bringing in, like 3M and Medtronics up in Minnesota, and we have students that go out and do internships and stuff. And so trying to encourage that we'd have places like that they could do it here. So anyway, I've got dreams for that.
I have a question for you. So Melanie Torno with Torno Mediation and Mental Health Services, we've talked a lot about entrepreneurs and startup businesses that are more of a product base. What is the difference, and maybe there's not, what is the different resources and funding for like a service-based industry? Because especially in our room, we have a lot of life coaches, mental health therapists, things like that. So what is the difference, and what are those resources?
I don't think it's a lot different. It's just a matter of having a good business plan, story, and a good team to execute it. I don't see that it's a lot different. I think, because quite honestly, a lot of the tech jobs are service jobs too, right? I mean, I think you'd have to consider software really a service, somewhere kind of in between a product and a service. I don't think it's a lot different now.
I was going to say with the intangible, there's a challenge when it's intangible. When you can't touch it, when you can't sell something directly, that's obviously a much more difficult thing. Especially there's a big difference too between being a business owner where you're just in charge of other people and where you are the business yourself as a service industry when you're just serving clients, whatever that might look like. So I think in cases like that, I think that really makes sense to start. That's when you want to kind of start small. You want to start playing into that and see if that passion, and if you really, and the point is you add value. And if you add value, you know, you can charge that whatever price, and you know, essentially that it garners. So I think just trying it though. I think for me it would be the big thing is implement it. Don't just dream about it. Don't just continuously think about it. What if I did this and continue to refine it? So often, where a lot of us are perfectionists, we want it to be perfect. We want to have the full product. We want to have every flyer. We want to have every website. We want to have it all perfect, and we want it all done. My encouragement would be just try it first. Actually get out, you know, do that experiment, charge someone money for it, you know, see if that's viable in that way, and then keep going with it. You know, if you're able to hire other people to do it with you, or if you're, you know, it depends on what you want to do with that business. But I think just doing it is probably the biggest step there.
Is this on?
It was.
Hello?
Can
you hear me?
Oh, there we go.
Okay. I kind of disagree. I think service firms are people capital. And so to scale up, you have to, let's say you're a consulting firm, to scale up, you got to find the additional people that can charge a nice rate. Lawyers are great because they can charge $1,200 an hour. But it's very hard to scale up and keep a good margin and replicate what you're doing. So it's a different challenge. And that's really the only point. I don't have an answer. It's just a different challenge.
Okay, so that was Ted.
So, I forget who asked earlier about the 5 to 7 year gap. I wanted to just sort of make a comment on both of those things that she brought up. Is that you? Yeah. So that 5 to 7 year gap, you know, a lot of times it's even 3 years, and it seems like it's a lot of times where the dream starts to sputter a little, and it's not quite as fresh. But you've also gotten past those initial projections that were required to get that business off the ground. And I can't stress enough coming back in for that checkup. I mean, once that business launches, it's like a car, you know, it may be running great. But again, you know, there are folks at the Small Business Development Center that can analyze your tax returns, take a look at your business, what it's been doing, where you've been spending that money. We're talking about really detailed, nice projections, and then also, you know, statements on what you've been doing as a business. So I would highly recommend doing that, you know, 100,000 mile service is really what it is on a business. And then the next step, we see it a lot, I see it all the time. You know, I talk to businesses every day almost that are, you know, someone's trying to buy an existing business. And again, not having a really good handle on what your business is doing makes it almost impossible to sell it. And then the second piece is that business transition, that succession plan needs to start early, 5 years before you even think about you're going somewhere. Have that plan in place. And a lot of times it's mentoring somebody who's already working at that business. You know, not looking for somebody outside the business just to come in and buy it, especially if your business owner is at all emotionally attached to their business. Get that manager that's been there for 10 years, get them involved, get them on that track to be purchasing into the business. You know, a percentage of ownership in lieu of salary or in addition to salary, or even an employee-owned business. There's a transition there. But again, if they want that business to thrive after they move on and they don't have a family member who's going to take it over and run it successfully, that's the kind of thing they have to look at early.
And I would say never let pride get in the way of your business. So if you need to ask for help, or if you need to, you know, ask a question to someone, never let pride, because that's just your dollars you're throwing in the garbage at that point.
So we have just a couple minutes left. So what I would like each of you is to just give us some kind of a takeaway or something that you would like to say to entrepreneurs or to people who are thinking about being an entrepreneur, just as something for us to take away.
Like I said, I guess I'd said at the beginning, there's a lot more tools out there then I think people understand. And so it's a matter of networking and figuring out how to find those tools and that can help support your business. And then the other one is that there's a lot of opportunity in Rapid City, and I'd ask everybody that we really do need to work together as a community to shape our community. It's everything from how we create these jobs, how we house the new people that are going to come here, how we educate the children that come with that. And, you know, let's make Rapid City the place that we want it to be. And quite honestly, a rising tide raises all ships.
I think I'll piggyback on what Darren said. You know, we do have a lot of supports and tools here in our community, but I think there's a lot of people too, and organizations like ours that are willing to take on different, you know, if there's other supports that you need, please let us know. Or gaps that you think that need to be filled, please let us know, because we want to make sure to fill those so that we can provide opportunities for people to start businesses and grow businesses and, you know, create a better quality of life within our community. So please talk to us.
I would say two things. Mainly, number one is start it. Do it. If you don't do it, nothing's ever going to happen. So I would think that's number one is actually get going. And I think there are so many wonderful resources that, you know, that are out there. So I think if you start it, at least get past the stage. The second thing I would think, of course, money, you know, it's all a lot of money, and I work in money, and sometimes I'm sick of all the money flowing around everywhere, but the reality is it takes money. And I would say how you deal with your personal finances is most likely exactly how you're going to deal with the business finances. So if you're charging things on credit cards and you're just you don't care, and you're not monitoring it, you don't know what your personal financial goals are, the likelihood of you succeeding on the business side of that financial goal is unlikely. That's just the reality of it.
All right, well, let's give it up for our financial panel.